Hello, and welcome to the Catching the Octopus podcast. Here, we will explore how connecting inward gives us an advantage outward. We openly talk about the obstacles and challenges and difficulties that life throws our way and how they become moments of gratitude and things that can benefit us when we look back on our lives. I'm your host, Niomi Hurley, and it is my mission to bring you top quality guests that will share with you openly their obstacles and also the techniques they use to go inward that strengthens the way that they serve themselves and others at the highest level. Thank you for joining. Let's get started. Hello, and welcome to this episode of Catching the Octopus podcast. So today we're doing a recap on my interview with Alissa Pongus. Now, Alissa owns Alissa Marie Coaching and Mentoring, which is a life coaching and business mentoring business. And she also is a director of a daycare center and also helps out in the family business, which is a tradie-based business in some leadership capacities. So she's got fingers in a few different pies, right? She's also a mum. She's also got, all these different hats and roles. And that really connected with me because for those of you that know me, I'm a many hats kind of gal, right? And it's funny because there have been people that I've spoken to before that have said, oh, no, you should just focus on one thing and you need to be more aligned with this in particular, or, you spread yourself too thin. But I like all my hats. And it was great to talk with Alissa because she was the same. She likes all of her hats too. And the best thing about being able to wear all of those hats is having the ability to take on different roles, right? And it allows us to experience different roles of leadership and pick up on what we want to be, how we want to show up. But being a parent is a different leadership role to running a business, to being in my case, being on a board or, doing some corporate work with teams. So there's so many different spaces that we can actually come into. And it's about giving them all their own space. And so I often talk about counterbalance. So I don't believe in balance because balance is 50% of things, right? But being able to counterbalance that. So when I'm a mum, I'm 100% a mum. And when I'm a therapist, I'm 100% a therapist. And when I'm working in corporate, I'm 100% in corporate. And it's about being able to take on and off hats rather than stacking. And so I see a lot of people just stack hats, and that's where some of the issues can come. And so I understand why people would say you need to be more laser focused and take all of those hats off. Because it doesn't work for everyone, but did for Alissa. And so we aligned. The other thing I really loved about my interview with Alissa was being able to share her with the audience and support her as a fellow healer, right? As a fellow person that works in the health and wellness industry, and also as a fellow female. And we talked a little bit after the interview about how this doesn't happen enough. Right. We come into contact with people, especially when we're maybe building businesses or, when we come across in social aspects. And if we haven't done the inner work and we're not in a space where we're presenting well and confidently and in a space of enough, then we can be triggered by other people. Now, Alissa has a total different offering to me, but a lot of the same end game, right? And so it would be easy for me to feel threatened by that and not have her on the podcast. But I just think that goes against everything from a social context and spiritual context of what I believe, because I'm all about build that girl up, right? Give her a voice, give her a space, because it's when we're united that we can really create some meaningful change. So if we go into talking a little bit about Alissa, she started in business at the bottom and she worked her way up to the top. And that was a really great way for her to actually experience a lot of different leaders and a lot of different leadership styles. And I related to that because I did the same. My first job was as an office trainee. Well, my first job was in the Coles Meat Deli. And then I got an office traineeship. And so I went and worked for a real estate agent in a little country town as an office trainee. And from there, I continued my career journey. So I went from there to working in education, in the education system. Then I went and worked in the mining sector. Then I went and worked in the recruitment sector. Then I went into the fabrication engineering sector. What else did I do? Then I went, it was a sort of more fabrication, mine site installation sort of area. I also worked in the horse racing industry for a little while. I also worked in engineering, transport. So I have a whole range of different experience from all the jobs that I had. But the key element was it gave me a lot to learn, right? I learned a lot of things, not just about the industries, but the different people within them. And it's quite interesting because there are some industries that actually attract a stereotypical kind of person. So it helped me gather a lot of information on how I wanted to present as a leader from the experiences that I had and the other people I was able to view and model from. And Alissa mentioned the same thing. She mentioned how growing from the bottom and working your way up allows you to experience those different roles of leadership. And then you're able to pick up on what you want to be as a leader, whilst also understanding what you don't want to be as a leader, which can be equally as important. So we also talked about, if we go back to those roles and those hats, that was at the start of the interview that we talked about that. And I think I really loved one of the things that she said, and that was celebrating the different roles we get to play and make them fluid, make them move into one another, make them complement each other, right? Because we're the same person when we're presenting in this space. But as she said, it allows us to embody different parts, the qualities and the traits that we have. Then we can bring out different ones and highlight them and focus on them in the different roles that we play. And I really did appreciate talking about this because I think one of the things that I would love to think that I'm modeling for people is that it's okay to have an and instead of an either or. So I'm a mum and I'm a podcaster and I'm a business owner and I support non-for-profits and I'm a therapist and I'm a corporate leadership specialist and, right? I'm a friend, all of those sorts of things. It doesn't have to be an or. I don't have to be a parent or an employee, or I don't have to own a business or have a job, all those sorts of things. Um, Also, having a diverse range of people around you is where the conversation went. And I loved that. And she did mention, people that have different roles outside. Some people, volunteer in services, emergency services, or some people have different hobbies that they do and they're part of those groups. But having those people surround you in business is gold, absolute gold, because people with different life experiences can have different points of view. And so she was saying those fresh set of eyes are a great way to move forward with any kind of plan you have when you're doing strategic planning, when you're having discussions about things that need problem solving around, especially those people that aren't in the same field of work, because it allows different views and perspectives. And this came in a little bit when we were talking a little bit about imposter syndrome, and when we're in a space where we don't have enoughness, right? Yeah. We can come into an imposter syndrome space, and that's just our conditioning of saying, am I really able to add value here? Right? Do I really believe I've got the value to add? And her and I both had very similar experience that when we actually start talking to people, we're like, oh, gee, we know lots of stuff, right? So we don't have that experience anymore, but it was something that came in the early days. And, even though I must admit, sometimes when I am delivering in a corporate space, I will recognize that, oh, this group here knows a lot about that. And I'm about to do some training in that area. Like, I hope I add value. But more often than not, I do, because those different, fresh set of eyes, different industries and backgrounds allow us to come in with different points of view and perspectives. So everyone is able to learn off each other. No one is superior to another person. We're all just here to connect, support, and learn from each other. Um, I loved another thing that Alissa touched on, and that's investing in yourself. And investing in yourself allows you to be at a level to invest in others. And she talked about, people that say they're coaches and go in the coaching business, but they kind of don't really do much more than that, right? They say they're a coach and then that's kind of all they do. And they don't work on improving themselves. They kind of think, oh, well, I know it all. And with Alissa, she mentioned that she has a couple of coaches herself. Myself, I have a couple of informal coaches, but I also, as you may already know, I'm studying my master's and looking to maybe even further that at the end. So I'm always on a learning journey. And I've actually been, it's funny, I've actually had people make negative or derogatory comments about that in the past. And if I didn't have the enoughness, it would be easy for me to allow that to impact me. But it's kind of like, they kind of felt like I was, what's the right word? Compensating for something that I didn't have. And I'm like, no, I just love learning. But because they didn't have that drive to learn, or they actually felt like they were in a spot where they already knew everything, which, they'll find out one day that that's inaccurate. But they didn't feel like they needed to do any additional learning. And so obviously it was triggering for them to see me continually growing and learning in that space. But if we're here in a capacity to help other people, whether that be in coaching or in therapy, or as leaders, right? If you're in a leadership position, you owe it to the people that you're leading to continually grow and continually develop. Now, I have a online leadership program if you're interested, and I deliver in the corporate space. But that aside, there's so many things you can do as well that come at next to no cost or no cost. There's so many webinars out there, like this digital age that we have overloads us with information. So there's no excuse to not being doing something. A coach is a really great way to do it as well, because, just having a chat can help people express different ideas. And I had a client slash friend that I was chatting with this week that was in that space. They had a decision to make, and they had their current situation and their new situation. And I don't want to share much because it was quite confidential, but it was breaking down. And the conversation that I had with her and the questions I asked her was, at the end, she was like, you've given me lots to think about. Now, I'm not there to solve her problem. I'm not there to give her the answers, but the way that I was a fresh set of eyes and invoked curiosity, I was able to ask some really great questions that then got her thinking a little bit differently to help her make a decision that's the right one for her. So we also talked about something that was really interesting, which is starting down a particular path, right? And thinking that we're doing something for one particular reason and realizing it takes us down a totally different path, right? So, Alissa was talking about her own healing process and how she went through that. And it was through her healing process that someone said to her, you could help others. And she was like, really? No, I don't know. And that's when she came into that coaching and mentoring game. So, sometimes in life, especially in leadership, we have to have that realization that not everything is going to happen as we want it to, but everything will happen to plan. And so I loved having that conversation with her, because it's really embedded in my belief systems as well. Is yes, have a plan. Yes, go and work towards it. Yes, take steps, but don't grip too tightly, because we don't always know where that's actually meant to be taking us. We think we do, because that's what sparked us and the idea for us to do that course or do that program or go and take that job, but we don't always know where that's going to actually really end us up. Um, What else did we have here that we talked about? She talked a fair bit about NLP, which is neuro-linguistic programming, and that's something that she really uses a lot in her coaching and mentoring space with people. I do tend to use it a little bit in the RTT, in the transformation section, and I do probably use it quite incognitively. I can't even think of the word. Crikey, I hate it when I do that on these podcasts. Subliminally or slightly when I am working with clients, but it's not my main go-to. However, it works a treat for her in her own growth, and it works a treat for her with her clients. And one thing she did say that I totally jumped on board with was the subconscious drives 95% of our thoughts, our feelings, and our behaviors, which is bang on. And so that NLP is connected to those subconscious thought processes, right? And it looks at the way that the brain's wired, like us being triggered at different things, and why we have different belief systems. And she also touched on that words being things, or words creating other things for us. We'll go into that in a moment. But one of the main things she did say was perception is projection. So why are the things that other people say about us, think about us, or do around us triggering us, right? Well, it's triggering us because it's meant to create self-reflection. That's the space we're meant to go in, instead of actually just it triggering us and us unleashing and letting the amygdala take control. That's a space for us to go, oh, got awareness, that triggered me. Okay, I'm going to go and find out why. Become curious about that. There's so many people that will get triggered and just have an emotional outburst or do something vindictive or nasty or payback or whatever it is that their initial response or that programmed response is. It doesn't have to be that way. We can still be triggered and go, oh, that triggered me, and not fall into those patterns.
If you're enjoying this podcast and you want Niomi or any of her guests featured on your podcast or as a keynote speaker at your next event, you'll find their contact details included in the show notes. If you'd like to learn more about how you can work with Niomi individually or as part of your strategy to improve leadership in your business, then review the courses, offers and services at getupandgoconsulting.com.au.
And so having self-reflection is one of the main keys, and creating curiosity around why something's being triggered within us is a really powerful way to move into that self-reflection state. Oh my goodness, my words. Self-reflection state. Okay. Another thing we did speak about was the emotions, and how, when we don't self-reflect and when we do push things down, and we have avoidance techniques, which so many people do, and especially achievers. I see a lot of achievers and a lot of people in the achieving space sitting in a place of avoidance. They don't believe in feeling emotions. I control my emotions. I don't think you do. I think you just ignore them. That's two different things, right? And I only say this because I've been there. I spent pretty much majority of my life ignoring my emotions. And it's only now that I'm doing this work that I'm like, oh, actually emotions have purpose. And I will allow myself to feel them. And it feels yuck and it's horrible. Now, I don't allow myself to unpack there. And you may have heard me say before, I feel and deal. But I definitely don't push things away to not feel them, because that's what happens with ailments that come out in our body, right? So emotions trapped in the body manifest as physical ailments, symptoms, and illnesses. And I've seen this in people that have come through to me. So I've had clients with autoimmune diseases, Raynaud's, Hashimoto's, and those people that have come in have had these emotions that they've just pushed down, and they're stuck in the subconscious mind. And so things like shame and guilt are very commonly manifesting as the autoimmune diseases, right? Because the brain is going, oh, I don't deserve to be healthy. I don't deserve to be well. And it doesn't function as well, right? So we make this brain out to be some almighty, oh, but it's not really. It's connected to emotions and behavior so closely. And if one of those things is out of whack, they're all out of whack. Right? And it doesn't send the right chemicals out, because why does this person have more of this chemical coming out than this person? Well, it could be environmental, but they both live in the same place. Can it be emotional? Maybe, right? If we open our minds a little bit more and we think about stress, and stomach ulcers. If someone presents to the doctor with stomach ulcers, they will normally say, "Oh, do you have stress going on?" And they will actually say that that's the cause of a stomach ulcer. So the medical profession have accepted and will diagnose stomach ulcers as a result of thoughts and emotions, really, if we break it down. So we're already partway there. We just haven't gone the full way there. And this is a really next level open your brain up space. So I don't expect all the listeners to jump on board with this. Some might be rolling their eyes and going, "Oh, cuckoo gnomes." That's fine. Don't have a problem with it. But the amount of people I see, the research that I've done, trauma responses in people, all these sorts of things, create an environment that the body's sitting in. They create increased blood pressure or increased heart rates. They create suppressions of different chemicals in the brain. They create different reactions from our gut and how our gut works. And so all of those connected together has the ability to impact our physical health. And so emotions trapped in the body will manifest as physical ailments, symptoms, and illnesses. So if you're an avoider and you avoid emotions, reach out. I think you need to have a chat with me, because otherwise as you age, it's going to become very problematic for you. And so when we talked about that, we talked about some people accepting it and some not. And Alissa went into our mind can be in a box. And I find this as well. Some people, and even myself, my mind's in a box. I mean, when I first started doing the past life regressions, I didn't tell many people. When I first started doing hypnosis for crikey Moses, I'm trying not to swear here, keep it PG, gnomes. I was going to swear, and then I went into another thing, which was a religious connotation. Anyway, cray. But, when I first started doing the hypnosis and I was qualified, I wouldn't say I was a hypnotherapist, right? I would say, "Oh, I work with people and I take them into a deep meditative state," because that fits in the box. So for me, the last 3 years has been amazing, because it's made me throw my box away, because the things that my path has led to, unbeknownst to me, as I've been guided through my career, are things that are outside the boxy kind of things. And so, yeah, the past life regressions, the hypnosis regressions, all of that sort of stuff is completely outside the box. And I even find now I get little knowingness stuff that comes through. So the more I spend time in myself, the more I just know things as well that I can, which helps me with my clients. Today I was speaking with someone and they were talking about a situation they're in, and I'm like, "Oh yeah, and they did this and this and this and this." And they're like, "Yeah, they did. I wasn't there." But that is the power of connecting and having self-awareness. You able to tap into a wealth of knowledge that doesn't fit inside the box. So, these emotions that come up in our lives as well, and the way we deal with emotions and the way we deal with our thoughts and the way we deal with our bodies can be created through those childhood experiences, our schooling systems, and all of that stuff that actually imprints on the subconscious mind. And that can prevent us from believing in things that are not easy to see or touch. And that's fine. Some religions are very big on that. I did have a client that had been brought up in a religious environment from her childhood, and she had not quite a lot of fear, but she was very apprehensive about the whole process, because she had been educated and raised to think that it wasn't something supported by God. And I said to her, "Well, I only work with my old mate upstairs, right? That's the only person I work with. So I feel like we're in a good pace." Anyway, I was kind with her. I was gentle. I really took into consideration the way she was, and I made her feel safe. We had a great session, but it was having that set up in her mind from when she was growing up. So Alissa talked about creating our own reality, right? And creating our own reality is to do the things that you want to do. So get clear on what you want and identify what's no longer in alignment with you. And you can do that alone or with a coach. And what are you doing to get that goal? What are you willing to do to get that goal? Right. So this comes in alignment with something that I'm pretty sure in my interview with Jeff Stewart we talked about, which is what do I need to stop doing? What do I need to start doing? What should I continue doing? Right. The stop, start, continuum. Look at me just making up words today. Right? So having a look at that and setting that up. And so we have this belief system sometimes that I'm no good at this. Really, no good at that? Or do you just not take the steps to actually be good at that? And that's fine, but you don't lie to yourself, kind of thing. So we talked again about that lacking in one area of your life and mapping across all areas. And I will talk to this to the cows come home, right? Everything's connected: physical, mental, spiritual, financial, occupational, environmental, everything's connected. And so if one of the areas of our life isn't doing so well, then it's going to affect the other areas. And that's where people like coaches, or, the work that I do, is really helpful, because you can talk about it as it happens and deal with it, instead of what we like to do as humans is we kind of try and ignore it like it's not there and focus on the other stuff, and then it festers and becomes a bit more of an issue. Oh, there was so many things we talked about. It was such a great interview with her. Where focus goes, energy flows. So we even have a reticular activator, part of our brain, that when we actually want to find something, we will find it in droves. So if you ever bought a new car, you see that car everywhere. But that also happens with our motivation, right? Or a discipline on what we want in our lives. If we see everything as positive and opportunistic, then we will find everything as positive and opportunistic. But if we're focusing on everything as being obstacles and all the things stopping us from being and doing what we want to do, then we're always going to find them, right? We're always going to be able to back ourselves up with excuses about why we're not doing, thinking, feeling the way we should. Also talked about that proximity aspect and the people around us and how they affect us as well. So from an energy perspective, you're sitting in like a soup bowl of thoughts and feelings of different people. And when you're in that soup bowl and they don't align with you, they're still going to affect you, right? So that's where that saying of we are the sum of the 5 people that we surround ourselves with, because we are the sum of them, of their thoughts and their feelings, right? And to a certain extent, their behaviors. So if we want to be a better version of ourselves, then find those versions of ourselves, right? And surround yourself with those people. I like to have a variety of different connections. So I have some people that are really regimented, really fixed mindset kind of people. And then I have some people that are in the growth mindset space and, love diving into that theoretical element of things. And then I have some that are like really woohoo, next level, right? But I like to spend time with all of them, because I like to surround myself with a whole tapestry of different people that have different experiences, because that enriches me in the best way possible. So that's why I'm a part of so many groups. I volunteer in a fair bit of things. I try and go to networking events when I can, because I just love meeting and surrounding myself with new people, because it enriches me and the way I think and feel and behave. We also talked about people saying they're lost. And I think one thing that we don't always realize as well is who we are is here. It's just that we've had stuff layered on top of us. And I spoke before about the stuff that happens in our childhood as we're growing, even into young adulthood and adulthood. There can be things that are said to us or experiences we have that can have us close off part of ourselves, or have us hide a part, or just pretty much just putting mud and pressure on who we truly are and trying to shape and mold us, but in that same space, hiding some of those elements. And so when someone says to me, oh, I'm really lost, it's kind of like, you don't need to find yourself. You're already there. We just need to remove all of this stuff that's hiding who you are, right? And really get to know yourself. And that's why it's called inner work, because that's what you're doing. You're going in and you're going back in, and you're actually taking off all of that programming to actually go, who am I really? Oh, this triggered me. Why does that trigger me? Because this happened and I believed that this was correct, or I have this belief system. Okay, I need to shed that, right? So I can show up as my authentic self. And so we spoke about who we are is stored within us, but can be overshadowed with the emotions, feelings, and behaviors that our subconscious is programmed with. So that's something that Alissa did mention. Also, the words we say and the way we think create our reality. I always say words are things. You may have heard me say it before. So when we're actually speaking, I did ask Alissa, are there some things that you would recommend for people within that NLP or that word use space that can be helpful for them? And the key thing she was speaking about at that point was, if you catch yourself using the wrong words or talking about yourself poorly, recognize it and change it. And as humans, we're going to slip up. We might do really great one week and really not so great the next week, and that's okay. Be kind to yourself when that happens. Pick yourself back up and get stuck back into it again. But there were some key words that might connect with people that she did say are really helpful to eliminate and remove out of your vocabulary. The first one was the word but. She said change it for another word, maybe like and. So I would love to do that, but is always an excuse, right? But is followed by excuses or contradictory terms. So what about, I would like to do that and I need to do X, Y, Z before I can, or I need to research this and that and the other, or take this action to enable me to do it. It takes out the negative space of it. Remember before we were saying, if you're looking for negative, you're going to find negative. If you're speaking negative, your brain will continue looking for negative. She also said, don't use the word trying. So trying's not setting you up for achieving. It programs the brain to keep failing. And I totally agree. And I mentioned in the interview that part of my induction processing and deepeners and getting people into hypnosis is I ask them to try and open their eyes. And I see their eyes flutter and they try. And at the end, they will say to me, I actually knew I was in hypnosis when I didn't open my eyes. I couldn't open them. And I went, well, you could have, but I told you to try. And so that's exactly what your brain did. So when we use the word try, that's exactly what we'll do, right? We'll try, but we don't want to succeed. Otherwise, we would say we're going to succeed at this. So take try out. I'm going to give it my best shot. That's better, isn't it? Because the brain's programmed better. There's so many different things you can use instead of that word trying. Sorry. She said sorry gets thrown around a lot, and my daughter does, and I used to as well, throw sorry around a lot with everything. And even when it wasn't my fault, I go, oh, sorry. And people look at me weirdly. How we're programmed. So I've got a bit of work to do on my daughter to try and help reverse that with her. But you know, she was saying don't force your kids to say sorry. And she even said if you use the words I apologize, it's more impactful and it takes it away from easily being able to say sorry for everything. It has more intention behind it as well. And the last one she spoke about was can't. Take can't out of your vocabulary. However, sometimes it might be necessary when you really can't, but try and switch it up for I cannot, so that you're not getting caught in the can't trap. Because can't a lot of the times is either you're not wanting to do it, or you do want to do it, or you don't want to do it, right? So you can't use that as an scapegoat. And that's what many people actually do when they use the word can't. Instead of actually going, I don't want to do that, it's I can't do that. So I do a bit of strength training. I'll actually go, oh, and I do not now say I can't do it because I said that before and I haven't been able to, but then the next training session I can, right? Nothing's changed other than the words I'm using and the belief systems that have been created in my head. And I can't stress enough how freaking powerful the belief systems in our head are. They really do shape our reality. So great interview with Alissa. Please go and have a listen to her interview. If you want to, follow her on socials. She's doing some amazing things, and I'm really grateful to have had her come onto my show as well, because like I said at the start, it's very easy for people to get triggered against each other, especially when they do similar things. But I love her philosophy, and I love how she's also supportive and propping other people up, and that's really what we should be doing. So thanks for tuning into this episode. Like I said, go and have a listen to Alissa's interview in our last episode. And if you want to reach out to her or me, we'd love to hear from you. Thanks for joining in and listening to this episode of Catching the Octopus podcast. It's been great having you here. And if you'd like to go and like and subscribe and maybe even leave a 5-star rating if you think it's worth it, I'd really appreciate it. I look forward to seeing you in our next episode.